Warwick Üniversitesi'nde felsefe bölümünde doktora öğrencisi ve araştırma görevlisi. Doktora tezi başlığı ise Truth, Concept and Judgment, Hegel's Resolution of the Pyrrhonian Problematic. Kendisi bugün Hegel'in kurduğu yargı kuramına Prelude üzerine konuşacak. Ioannis Trisokkas ist Promotionsstudent und wissenschaftlicher Mitarbeiter an der Universität Warwick und die Dissertation lautet Truth, Concept and Judgment, Hegel's Resolution of the Pyrrhonian Problematic. Heute wird er sprechen über Hegel's Prelude to the Speculative Theory of Judgment.
I'd also like to thank the organizers for inviting me to this conference. So just begin. Scientific inquiry is actualized by means of positing judgments in the universe of discourse. When these judgments emerge for the first time in that universe, they have a character of immediacy. Immediate positive judgments find themselves entangled in the relations of equal poles with their negations. They attempt to resolve the contradiction through privileging one of their latter by means of positing a ground or a criterion of truth is doomed to failure. For this ground has to emerge in the universe of discourse as an immediate judgment. An event that initiates vicious infinite regress or vicious circularity. This state of affairs denotes the collapse of scientific inquiry and therefore of the establishment of the impossibility of our ever-acquiring knowledge of truth. This is in a nutshell the core of Pyrrhonian skepticism. In his revolutionary essay, The Relation of Skepticism to Philosophy, Hegel points out that just because the contradiction cannot be resolved by means of privileging and grounding, it does not mean that such resolution is impossible. He suggests that instead of regressing into grounds, one could progress into higher judgments in whose laws the conflicting relata are unified in terms other than a simple conjunction. He also informs us that this process of unification is peculiar to the realm of reason, or thought as such. The problem with this suggestion is that it requires a theory of judgment to support it, which can be formulated only by means of judgments that would, at some moment, necessarily have a character of immediacy. Thus, Hegel's task with respect to this problem is to show A, that the theory of judgment can emerge from a process of unification of contradictory judgments in the realm of reason, and B, that the content of that theory affirms such a process of unification. Happily enough, the speculative logical project does thematize the category of judgment, and therefore aspires to offer a theory of judgment. My aim in this paper is to discuss in a descriptive rather than argumentative way Hegel's prelude to the immanent formulation of the speculative theory of judgment in the science of logic and in the secular theology. The category of judgment emerges in the final logical sphere, the sphere of the concept, as the immanent result of that dialectic which pertains to that sphere's very first category, the category of pure concept. This dialectic has culminated in the centralization of the individual. It's repositioning as a complex constellation of relations and states of affairs. Firstly, it is a topos in which the three fundamental concept determinations, universal, particular, individual, are immediately bound in a unity. Secondly, it is a relation of self-subsistent concept determinations, namely elements that behave as if their character was fixed or unchangeable, and did not depend upon other elements. This fixity corresponds to what Hegel earlier called the internalized abstraction of the concept, and manifests itself in three ways. A, as the immediate individual as stands against the universal, as the abstract universal as stands against the individual, and as a relation between indifferent particulars. And thirdly, the individual is a relation of fundamental concept determinations, each of which contains the totality of those determinations. So, the individual has three fundamental features, that's unity, self-subsistence, and totality. The judgment is nothing but the positing of this whole structure as a single element. The positing has the significance of the concepts appearing in a determinate fashion, of its externalization, a determinate opening up. Hegel refers to the judgment as the Entäußerung, the Auftreten, and the Erschließung of the concept. This means that the concept becomes real only insofar as it is and is expressed through judgment. And since the collapse of the logics of being and essence has established being as concept as the truth of what there is, Hegel is absolutely right when he says that all things are a judgment. Note, however, that this notion of the determinate concept denotes not just the result of the specific development of the category pure concept, but also the truth of all concepts or categories that constitute the realm of reason. For each and every concept is what the concept or the highest universal has shown itself to be. Consequently, all the categories that appear in the previous logical spheres of being and essence have now explicitly acquired, as expressions of the concept, the form of judgment. This has the following consequence. A crucial discovery in the dialectic of the pure concept was that what there is in truth emerges immanently from the principle of universality, or the concept itself. In other words, each category emerges from another, and all of them from the simple identity of being, from the subject matter of reason itself. Now that each category has been firmly determined as a judgment, it must be the case that the categorical development can be characterized in terms of the judgment. Thus, one of the major challenges the speculative theory of judgment faces is to explain how the relation between universality, particularity, and individuality in the judgment logos enables the movement of the categories. As Hegel puts it, quote, what determines the concepts there are, and how these determinations of the concept produce themselves in a necessary way, this must show itself in the judgment. Was es für bestimmte Begriffe gibt und wie sich diese Bestimmungen derselben notwendig ergeben, dies hat sich im Urteil zu zeigen. It seems therefore that the dialectic of the judgment will move in two interwoven directions. On the one hand, the emphasis will be placed on the microscopic level of the judgment logos itself. Investigations in this realm must explain how the fundamental concept determinations behave in that logos. On the other hand, the focus will be on the macroscopic level of the categorical constitution of the universe of discourse, of rational discourse. This inquiry must explain how exactly the behavior of the fundamental concept determinations, universality, particularity, individuality, in the judgment logos enables the expression of the concept's dynamic categorical constitution. Let me now say a few words about the notions of subject and predicate. These, together with the notion of the copula, are introduced in the theory because the judgment must provide distinct spaces for each of the self-subsistent elements. This means it must provide spaces for true relata and a connector. The subject denotes the space in which the self-subsistent individual appears. The predicate, the space in which the self-subsistent universal appears. And the copula, the space in which their connection